We are here at the Cake Cafe in Rizal Street, Talisay City. And today we're going to talk about a little bit of history of the city of Talisay with a history professor of the Talisay City College. We have Marben Bascon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Mayong adlaw ni mo dia, Marbs.
Ay, may nga
Prof,
sir.
Prof. Prof.
Yeah, prof. Normally,
Prof.
ma'am Jay, tawag nila ba sa
Prof.
college o university professor?
So kung maghisgot mo og Cebu, maghisgot og Sugbo, province of Cebu, ang mas taring gid pirmi is Cebu City, Mandaue City, usahay kanang si Lapu-Lapu City, kay naman kuno ang Battle of Macta dito and all of that stuff. Yeah, rarely do you hear the city of Talisay, but I think we need to know more about this city called Talisay City because not too many people know about it. So ang una na kong pangutanan nimo, Prof, is this. Give us a little bit of history ba kaning ang pagsugod sa Talisay kanusa man ni siya unya kaning when did it become a city?
Okay. One of the important things that we need to know about Talisay is that the existence of Talisay, by the way, it's really one of the, the existence of Talisay, not only as a city, but we go back to the origin of Talisay itself.
Correct.
For example, kung mubasa ta about sa history of Cebu, normally dili jud mawa ang Talisay, no? But there are some extent that, Talisay was, set apart because of some of the circumstance in history. So, for example, ang Talisay pag-abot sa mga Espanyol, during that time, wala pa may word yun nga Talisay, no? Pag-abot ng Espanyol, 1521. But what we have in the writings of Pigafetta, it mentioned there that there was establishment, coastal settlement, nga gi-mention niya, mga around, ang iya dong gilayon, about like 150 kilometers, so like from Cebu City going to Minglanilla, tagi na siyang area, 150 kilometers. So we could say that Talisay, during the coming of the Spaniards, was already a busy coastal settlement. Then, pag-abot sa mga Spanyol, yun na dyan nilang Cebu, but they were able to establish Talisay as a town as early as 1834. So, 1834, we are older than Minglanilla, we are older than other towns and cities of Cebu, we are older than them. Then, 1834, nahimo nga...
When it was considered a town in 1834.
Yeah, nahimo nito ng town 1834.
What was it called back then?
Talisay.
Talisay na.
Yeah, but before that, in the one of the map of Morelia Velarde, Spanish cartographer, it was already mentioned as early as 17th century. Nga nanay Talisay. But Talisay during that time was not yet a town. Talisay was a barrio or a visita of San Nicolas. So kung ato tanaw, anong sabi ng San Nicolas karon is barrio na lang. But during that time, San Nicolas was a town. And Talisay
And you're
was...
talking about the San Nicolas of Cebu City?
Cebu City.
Okay.
Because during that time, during the Spanish period, San Nicolas was a town. And Talisay was a barrio to San Nicolas. So naitabo, Talisay separated from San Nicolas in 1834. Pero naitabo ang San Nicolas, from being a town, nahimo siyang Arabales, then nahimo na nun siyang barangay, ni gamay no ng iyang political geography. Pero ang Talisay, 1834, we became already a town.
A town already?
Yeah, we already became
so,
a town.
So, nagisgot ka ganiha in the beginning of your historical kaning pagsubay mo sa history sa Talisay nga ningingon ka nga nanay mga coastal settlements.
Yeah, coastal settlements.
Can you elaborate further? Coastal settlement, that's separate from coastal or trading systems, right? Or trade routes, right? What's man ang coastal settlements? What do you mean by that?
So, kung moingon tag coastal settlement is that the coastal area of Talisay, like for example from Tangke going to Pook, they were already inhabited by majority of the populations.
Okay.
So when we speak of coastal settlement, it was really the center of the town. So like for example, what happened during that time?
Ang sentro sa Talisay niya itong una.
No, panahon is ang
coastal settlements.
Yes, coastal area.
Mo man gitawag nila og unsa tawag nga?
Baybayon.
What I mean ba kanang sentro ba sa usa ka taon ba? Unsa
Poblacion.
Poblacion, di ba?
Poblacion,
In fact, we're here now.
Yeah.
Niagi tag Poblacion, di ba? So mo na sentro sa usa ka taon ang
Yeah,
Poblacion.
usa ka taon ang Poblacion.
Ang ilang poblasyon niya itong una was the coastal settlements.
Yeah, coastal settlement, then Poblacion became Poblacion only 1834.
Oh,
So, ang
okay.
naitabuan na niya, before 1834, wala pa Poblacion.
Oh.
So, what we have during that time was that Poblacion was originally part of Tangke.
Okay, okay.
So, Poblacion was part of Tangke as part of the coastal settlement.
Okay.
Then, pag 1834, so since in 1834, it needs one of the aspect of a town or pueblo, makinanglan man siya sentro.
Okay.
So, ang sentro, gitawag siya Poblacion.
Okay, okay. Okay. So, moving along, so 1834, you finally became a town.
Town, yeah.
With the name Talisay. So, unsa may before we move forward, nganong Talisay man, unsa man ang Talisay? We all know of a Talisay tree, right?
Yeah,
Was
yes.
it named after that? Unsa man?
Yeah, actually the term Talisay, I mean, as what I have said, it was already mentioned as early 17th century. So it means that Talisay was a localized name. It was a localized name, a localized term that was adopted by the Spaniards. So Talisay, actually there are 3 known towns and cities in the entire Philippines nga nag-name siya after Talisay. We have Talisay Batangas, then we have Talisay Negros, then we have Talisay Cebu. So our town, it was named after a type of magtalisay tree that was very endemic in the coastal area. So mo na giname ta. So technically, pagkakita sa mga Spanyol, or even before the coming of the Spaniard, we already known as Talisay because of the present of the endemic tree that was very common during the time.
That very common Talisay tree back in the 1800s still exists until today.
Yeah, until na napagyapo yung mga magtalisay tree nga existence. Yeah.
Pero dili na kayo as common. Nagyapoy daghan.
Common gyapon na.
Daghan gyapon.
Yeah, common, very common.
In Talisay.
Not only in Talisay but throughout the entire coastal region of Cebu.
Okay. Why do you think a Talisay tree is very common in the area? Is it because of the waters? Unsa may reason ka?
Well, if you're going to check science, it has something to do with the presence of the water because number one, magtalisay tree is not that very hard to propagate in that sense. So,
Manggibhion na siya.
oh, dali na kinabuhion siya. And sometimes, some of the magtalisay tree are grow because of they're scattered by birds.
Birds. Okay.
Yeah.
So 1834, natalisay na siya as a town. Sige, let's move ahead. Let's move along. So
Okay.
unsa pa may
So,
mga
Talisay
pangitabo sa
became, town in 1834.
Oh.
But one of the important aspect of Talisay when it became a town was that Talisay was, the entire stretch of land of Talisay was originally owned by the Augustinian friars.
The Augustinian friars. The entire Talisay.
Yeah, not only entire Talisay but including Minglanilla because Minglanilla was part of Talisay. Minglanilla was a barangay or city of Talisay in 1834.
Oh, okay. Very interesting.
So that is one of the reason why even until now we have this problem especially on the side of the government sa problema sa gobyerno kay way yuta naman because when Talisay became a town in 1834 the government has no lands because technically the land that were occupied by the government during that time was owned by the Augustinian friars.
Okay.
Mo nang gitawag natong friar estate. Mao na nga atong mga karaan nga mga gikan sa Bureau of Lands nga mga papilis na adyo gibutangog Hacienda di Talisay iming Glanilla is friar estate because the original owners of the land in Talisay was the Augustinian. It was not owned by the government.
Wow. So what is the state now? I'm just curious. Like unsa na may status sa ownership sa most of the land in Talisay? Is it still owned by the friars or the Augustinians or nakuan siya na distribute na I don't know equitably or what? I don't know if that's the correct word.
That is really that is one of the before that was really one of the problems during the Spanish period
Okay.
because people were really fighting for land ownership. Again, it has something to do with there was a revolution happened during that time. For example, it culminated on in Talisay we have the 2 de Abril, then we have 3 de Abril in Cebu City. But one of the important aspect or reason why Talisayno revolt against the Spaniards, it has something to do with agricultural purposes, the land ownership. So naitabuan na niya from 1834, prior before 1834, even until 1898, ano nagiyagyapon sa yuta mga Agustinian. Mo nang anay mga revolution, ay mga pricing nga naitabo, particularly the 1898. Then when the friars were expelled, kini mga friars, mga Agustinian, they were expelled. Bright kayo ang mga friars because as early as 1897, ilang naging mortgage ang ilang property, ang ilang yuta sa Talisay because they knew that what happened in 1896, that was the revolt in Manila. Kibaw sila nga, revolution in 1896, it will scattered throughout the regions of the Philippines. So ilang gibuhat, ilang gi-mortgage ang ilang yuta because right after the revolution, if there will be revolution, they would return to their lands.
The what revolution?
The Philippine Revolution in 1898.
Okay.
Because they were planning to return to their properties. But right after the revolution in 1898, the Americans came. So dako kay na siya nga problema. Kay ngano man wala man jud na na-address ang issue sa land ownership, gitawag na tog land ownership. So ang gibuhat sa insular government during the time, ang tawag din nato sa gobyerno kay insular government during the American period. So ang gibuhat sa insular government under Taft, both the properties, the entire stretch of lands in Talisay, it was bought by the insular government. Gipalit sa gobyerno sa insular government.
From the friars?
From the friars.
Okay, mortgage man ka to?
Gimortgage, pero dili naman nila makuha kay lalis naman, gubat naman. Ang mga Talisay, wala pa man sila naka-give up sa ilang experience during sa Spanish period nga gidawdaog, gipangsunog ilang properties kundi sila makabayad sa rent. So they were really planning to massacre the Spaniards during that time. So when the Spaniards came, the friars came back in 1899. Wala sila mga rayog Talisay, but they send some of the agents from the Bureau of Lands to assess the property. But of course, the Talisayan would not give up. Because for them, when they won the revolution, for them, winning against the revolution was a certificate that they expelled the friars.
So eventually they came to an agreement na with the land.
Yeah, they came to an agreement.
So there's less of a hassle now when it comes to land ownership in Talisay in 2025. Di na kayo?
Dili na kayo. Because what happened during the time when the insular government bought the property, the entire stretch of lands, so gi-open ang property, ang yuta, for kisaganahan mo palit, kisaganahan mo abang. Pero ang problema, ang gobyerno wala iyang kagalingon nga yuta. In fact, in 1915, when the municipal building was been established in Poblacion, na problema pa sila asa sila mangita og yuta. You try to imagine this is a government, this is a government project, and the municipio is very important because the municipio is considered to be the house where legal transaction, politics were being made. Pero ang problema, wala sila yuta. Wa sila sa gibuhat nila, nipalit sila og yuta in 1915. That was during the time of Panpilo, Presidente di Municipal Panpilo Canton. They bought a 2 piece of property diha sa Poblacion. Mao na nga kanang Talisay City College, mao na siya ang American period nga municipal building. It was bought by the
That's where you teach, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting. So unsa may mga mga panginabuhi, mga industriya nga nagsugod sa Talisay katong panahon nga na town pa siya.
Yeah.
Unsa may mga panginabuhi sa tao, agriculture ra bagyod or napay lain silang mga way of living back then in the 1800s?
Yeah. When I talk with Dr. Jobers Bersales, one of the eminent local historians in Cebu, remember that the friars were the owner of the entire stretch of lands in Talisay and Miglanilla. And in fact, it was the Agustinians who introduced the tubo or the sugarcane industry in not only in Talisay but in Cebu. And it was said that even in Negros, the Negros eventually went to Cebu or even to Talisay just to find a suitable type of sugarcane that will be planted in Negros. So imagine, before ang Negros, na sila sugarcane, sikat ilang sindero, naguna pa ta diri sa Talisay.
Oh, okay.
So, like for example, when the
So sugarcane de ang uso sa nga industriya
industry. So we have sugarcane and then we have the arroz or the rice field.
Rice field.
Or
Okay.
rice paddy. So, but Talisay was really famous of the sugarcane because, like for example, in 1888, the Agustinian decided to monopolize the sugar industry in Cebu. In southern Cebu because they found out that sugar industry was very lucrative. And then they began to establish not only one, but the biggest Intusan or sugar mill that was established during the American period. So what was the reason? Because they want to monopolize the sugar industry in Talisay.
So aside
during
from
that time.
sugar industry, ano pa may lain ng industriya diri sa Talisay back then?
Yeah, during the Spanish period, that was their main source of income. We have sugar.
Okay.
Then during the coming of the Americans in 1927, this was really more of the government decided to institutionalize the sugar industry. So are you familiar with Bumedco?
Not really.
The Bugo Medellin Corporation?
No.
So you try to imagine that during the 1920s, there were actually two sugar mills or industry that were established in Cebu. The first one, we have the Bumedco, that was Bugo and Medellin. Then we have the Talisay in Mohon. In Mohon, in the southern area of Cebu, that is the northern area, the Bumedco, the southern area in Cebu, we have the biggest sugar mill in the southern area of Cebu.
Back then?
Back then, that was in Mohon. Because that was the time when sugar really skyrocketed in the international market. But however, what happened during the 1930s was the Great Depression. Because of the Great Depression,
and
the sugar industry also
gubat mo,
down.
diba? Mga World Wars, diba?
Yeah, that is the 1920. But aside from the sugar, by the way, in the 1920s, Talisay was known to be as the summer capital of Cebu. The summer capital of Cebu. Yeah. Why was Talisay became the summer capital of Cebu? Remember that Talisay is just a neighbor of Cebu City. And at the same time, Talisay also is bustling with, it was bustling with coastal areas, as well as in one of the pages in the Bagong Kusog, that was a old newspaper that was founded by Vicente Rama. Talisay was known as naglutaw sa tubig. Ngano naglutaw sa tubig man? Kaya ang Talisay, mukaot lang ka, usa ka tiil, nagidakon, manggawas ang tubig. And in fact, in the 1920s, you try to imagine the 1920s, Talisay was considered to be as the summer capital of Cebu because of the two important aspects. Number one, it was mentioned there that during the time, Talisay had around 7 swimming pools that were owned by the Campo, the Hermosa, the Fernandez, the Viloria. And these swimming pools, by the way, became a tourist attractions, especially to those people who were from the Cebu City. So mga lang sila sa Talisay para mga ligo og swimming pool. Then aside from that, prominent families from Cebu City like the Osmeña, the Garcia, the Osmeña, we have the Cuenco, we have the Iscanio Garcia, the Iscanio Garcia, the owner of the present Beco, the Nies, we have the Golias, we have the Jereza, they have their summer villas built in Poblacion, Talisay in the coastal area. So wala pa ang Mactan nga famous sila sa kuan nila sa ilang mga beach resort, naguna na ang Talisay.
So wait a minute. So ang Talisay was famous for the swimming pools.
Yeah.
So anong daghan ng swimming pool sa Talisay tungod sa kadaghan sa tubig?
Yeah, tungod sa kadaghan sa tubig.
So are these swimming pools as we define it now, or gikan ni siya tubod nga
tubod
swimming
siya
pool?
gikan.
So dili ni siya swimming pool nga kanang in houses, right? This is swimming
Some
pool.
of them are in houses, like for example.
But what I mean by is that it's not one of those kind of typical swimming pools as we know it now nga ato pang bubuan og tubig gikan sa water service company, di ba?
Oh, yeah.
Kani siya tubod ni siya.
Tubod yun siya dito. So like for example, ang remaining na lang karon nga swimming pool coming from that period from the 1923 was the Maroka.
So nakinomdong pag during my childhood nga pirmi gid mi moadtog Talisay kung naay mga tapok-tapok, mga reunion sa mga beach.
Yeah.
In fact, the word and the name Pook Talisay always comes to mind when I was a kid. Was it also part of why Talisay became a summer capital of Cebu because of its beaches?
Yeah, that is correct. No, that is one of the reasons ng ang Talisay aside from swimming pool is because of the beaches. So you try to imagine coming from Tangke going to Pook, daghan kinang mga summer villa there that were owned by prominent families. Kinakita nila nga ang Talisay is the best way to unwind from the normal life they have in the city. And at the same time, nindot kayo og dagat ang Talisay during that time.
So kani mga summer villas nga gisgutan nimo owned by prominent families, are they private or are they open to the public?
Some of them are private, some of them are public. Like for example, we have the Jereza summer residence. When the USPF was been founded, the summer villa was open. Then we have the famous Miramar. The Miramar was originally owned by, it was really owned by Senator Mariano Cuenco. Then it was given to his brother, the Archbishop Jose Cuenco. Then Archbishop Jose Cuenco decided to donate this to the SVD fathers. Mao na nga mga around 1980s o 1990s daghang kayo mga SVDs, mga taga San Carlos, mga Riog Talisay, kay mga ligo sa swimming pool sa Miramar. Kaya nga man, resort man na sa una.
I don't wanna kaning detour sa, pero I'm curious but what happened to the beaches of Talisay? Like again, during my childhood, we would come here like very often to go to the beaches and have fun and go to, swim and mag-reunion, mag-gathering na. Nga naman, what happened to the beaches of Talisay? Why did it, for me, at least in my own perception, I don't know, it's backed up by reality. Nga nung namurag feeling ako, nawagtang man ang mga beach resorts sa Talisay. Nga naman, nawagtang bigod sila or ako lang pagtuo?
Actually, it has something to do, we have to think that it has something to do with, one of the reason really was the Second World War, no? Because what happened right after the Second World War was the displacement of the population. Like, for example, Cebu City was destroyed, Talisay was destroyed. However, in the 1950s, there was a resurgence of the Talisay beaches as one of the summer capital of Cebu. Like, for example, you have the Barba. The Barba resort was really the most famous in the 1950s.
Naon samto sila?
The Barba that was there was the Barba residence karon gipanagiyan na ron sa mga Aznar. That was the Barba residence, and in the 1950s it was really famous. You try to imagine that presidents, vice presidents, Senate presidents or political luminaries mga rin lang og Talisay para magstay diya sa Barba.
What do you think happened to those?
Ang naitabo mo sa Barba mong godis in the 1950s was that when the owner died, when the owner decided to transfer to Lahog, because in the 1950s, 50s and 60s, Lahog was fully established as one of the Beverly Hills in Cebu. Pumunta kabantay ta nga kasagaran sa progress going to the north, why going to the south? Then Lahog during the time, so some of ang owner sa Barba decided to transfer to Lahog, and some of the members also went to Toledo. So Moto nga mayor pod sa Toledo nga Barba. So it was acquired by the Asnar, by Jose Maria Asnar. It was acquired by Jose Maria Asnar. Then ang naitabuan na niya is, aside from Barba, naputay Yaro. Ang kanang Yaro that was very famous because Yaro is affordable. It was open to the public, unlike with the Barba. Barba is more private.
So but it looks like it's just a matter of changing of names, changing of ownership. Yeah. But something bigger and more sinister is probably going on. Nganong nawagtang man mga beach sa Talisay, in my mind, nawagtang ba yun or napanas na dahil? Dili lang kumuadto? Actually,
nawagtang siya, no? That is why in 1974, the Department of Tourism, decided to choose Talisay as a pilot.
Okay.
Pilot for beaches throughout the regions or throughout the Philippines. Pero ang problema mong God is, as what I have said, ang Talisay nakadagan ng population. Then nganong nakadagan, one of the reasons aside from the war, it has something to do with population. Nganong nakadagan population sa Talisay, we have to understand that Talisay is the gateway towards Cebu City. So nakadagan ng population sa Talisay, dili tungod sa mga Talisaynon, kundi katong mga gustong manrabaho sa Cebu City niya. Mahal man ang Cebu City, mahal ang Abanganan, mahal ang Makaon. So they would rather stay in Talisay. Second, it has something to do with the mismanagement of these beaches, because we have to understand that these coastal areas, they were privately owned. They were privately owned by personalities. Then naitabo na, since they were privately owned by personalities, so wala jud siya na ugma og tarong sa mga descendants.
So wala jud siya na maintain og tarong.
Wala jud siya na maintain.
Okay.
No? Sayang kayo.
Okay, so kanang mga lechon. I know Talisay is also known for lechon. In fact, I'm planning to go to the lechonan diri this Sunday morning. Kaya murag Domingo man sa buntag, murag bibo dia, di ba?
Actually, ang lami nga lechon sa Badog Domingo.
Sa Badog Domingo. Pasabta ko kung ngano man nga dagan makayog lechonan sa Talisay. Di naman nagikan.
So actually, ang lechon sa Talisay, historically it all started in the 1920s.
Okay. When padoon sa piyesta sa Talisay, sa may mga drum and bugle corps, di ba?
Actually, Bisperas ron, ugma may piyesta.
Mao di ay Bisperas. Sige lang, okay ra.
So actually, Talisay, lechon sa Talisay became famous in the 1920s when Talisay was famous for beaches. Kaya nga naman, ang mga tao decided to magluto silang lechon para sa mga bisita or mga turista nga mga Riog Talisay. So starting from the 1920s, originally lechon were being prepared because the main purpose was really to sell the lechon to the tourists or those
The
people.
beachgoers?
Yeah, beachgoers in Talisay.
Nakinomnom jud ko ba nga na ay lechon, ay daghang puso,
O kana mo.
napoy daghang kaning unsa nang mga
Ginabot.
ginabot,
Ginabot.
kanang kanang saging nga tamis bitaw kanang
Consilva.
konsilba o kana.
Pero karon ang Consilva wala na.
Oh.
I mean, ang mga new generation kung ginikailawan sa Consilva.
Oh.
Sa una dagang kita Consilva tungod kay katuban man da.
Asukar, di ba?
Asukar yan.
So-
Napot yung mga
So, bay,
kasagingan.
akong pangutana karon ba kay habit na mata mag-celebrate sa ato ang Business Month sa Talisay Chamber of Commerce, di ba? Akong pangutana ba, when you see Talisay now and its businesses, ang ilang mga negosyo, does its history explain where we are now in terms of the businesses that have sprouted here in Talisay City? Kaya naghisgot ka nitong una nga mga industriya ang atong ma-name is resorts, di ba? Kaning asukar, di ba? Naghisgot ka. Og asukar unya mura man na siya. Di ba? Dili man kaayo murag diverse ang mga negosyo sa Talisay. So ang mga negosyo sa Talisay karon, unsa man yung mga negosyo sa Talisay karon nga nahibilin? Napa ba to'y remnants katong asukar, katong unsa tawag niyan mga resorts, napa ba nahibilin or mga bago na gid nga butho ang mga resorts diri sa Talisay City mismo?
So actually, when it comes to resorts, no, actually when it comes to resorts, wala na dito remnants coming from the katudyo mga sikat ba Dayaro.
So ang mga negosyo niya atong una panahon sa mga Amerikano, panahon sa mga Espanyol, wala na gyud nahibilin ni ana diri sa Talisay City as we know it. Tama nimo?
Yeah, I mean, as of the moment or even today, wala na dyan nabilin. Kaya nga na, for example, during the Spanish period, we have the famous Intusan or sugar industry. Wala na. Kaya nga naman, our lands are being transformed to commercial and residential area. And in fact, Cebu, Talisay, as of now, kung atong tanahon, ng problema dyan tagyuta. So naalang tayo mga remnants, which basically part of our heritage nga nasa muhon, pero wala na dyan nagnegosyo o sugar. Kaya wala na may yuta.
So kano sa manina himog syudad ang Talisay?
So as early as 2000, by the way back 2000, the Congressman Eduardo Golias filed a bill to create Talisay as one of the component city in the first district, but Talisay became city mga 2001 na siya nahimo nga
Unsa
syudad.
mga industriya nga nakapahimo sa Talisay og syudad nga pinaka-abundant nga negosyo diri sa Talisay?
So during that time when Talisay became city, no, one of the visible sign that Talisay really became city is the commercial. It has something to do with residential first, residential and commercial. So why did I say residential? Because you try to imagine that in the southern area of Cebu, like for example, Talisay going to the south, kita ra sa Talisay pertinggahan ng subdivision. Ikasodi mo subdivision, dapat yung subdivision. Sodi mo subdivision, dapat yung subdivision. And we have to imagine that these lands that were used as subdivision.
Ilang subdivision sa Talisay?
Na, may kapiting daghan na.
Last time you checked.
Mga sa San Isidro lang daan, ang subdivision sa San Isidro lang daan, i-combine San Isidro and Dumlog, mga almost 100.
One area na.
One area lang na. So that is subdivision.
So nahimo gini og residential haven ang Talisay City.
Yeah, nahimo jud siya. It has something to do with, people would rather stay in Talisay because of the proximity going to Cebu City. So, for example, Cebu City during that time, mahal kayong yuta. Yeah, during that time, ang yuta sa Talisay, dili pa nga nakamahal. So, people would try to venture to Talisay because Talisay's price of land was not yet that very expensive.
So pasabot niya na kung daghag tao ang usa ka lugar, daghag subdivision ang usa ka lugar, daghag tao, daghag consumers, di ba?
Yeah, daghag consumers.
So na sila mga negosyo nga mo sprout. So unsa man ang mga negosyo nga ni sprout during that time nga it finally became a city. Sama ni atong
kini mga coffee shop
karon, the Cake Cafe, di ba, sa Rizal Street, Talisay City. Unsa pang may lain nga klase nga negosyo nga nibutho diri sa Talisay?
So for example, when Talisay became a city, like for example in 2000 or 2001, ang common na kayo nga makita sa Talisay jud as one of the tangible that Talisay really sa city was Tabunok. San Isidro, we'll start with Bulacau. For example, Bulacau na natay Gaisano. Na-imagine na natay Gaisano. Then na natay from Gaisano, we have Robinsons. From residential, we have big commercial infrastructure. We have structures. Then aside from that, we have food chain.
Before you continue, kaning Bulacau, ito ka Bulacau Pardo?
Bulacau, Talisay. Doon man naka Bulacau. Bulacau, Pardo, Bulacau, Talisay.
Unsa man ni siya? Are they in the same area or layo ning Bulacau Talisay?
Doon actually, they have the same Bulacau na area. But what separate Bulacau from Bulacau, Talisay and Bulacau, Pardo was the kanang sapa.
So murag nahiwa na ang Pardo. Niadtong una, Bulacau Pardo was one. Ano yung gitunga siya or unsa man?
Sa una, mo na itong siya Bulacau Pardo. Kaya ang Pardo sa una, taon man na.
Oh.
Then, mo na, maibong tanay, Bulacau Pardo, Kiyot Pardo.
Dekang kayo mga Pardo.
Basta, they have barangays, then, at the end, they have Pardo. Because during that time, Pardo was a town. Ang Pardo, mura na siya Talisay. Municipality.
Anong nakuan man, na-demote ba ng Pardo?
I think it was when Cebu City became Cebu City,
it became a component,
component
barangay,
city.
Diba?
Kining mga dagko nga mga towns like Mabulo was a town. Dayon we have Mabulo, dayon Talamban, then we have Pardo or even San Nicolas, incorporate na ni sila
Sa Cebu City.
sa Cebu. From town, incorporate sila sa barangay.
Pero ang Pardo, nagi part ani nga nahimog Talisay.
Wala. Ang kanara nga area dyan na Naji Bulacau, Talisay. Na Bulacau, Talisay, na Bulacau, Pardo. Pero ang stretch niya sa Bulacau, Pardo, Bulacau, Talisay, usara sila ka-stretch. Pero what separate them in terms of political geography was the Bulacau Bridge.
So karon Sir Professor Marvin, sir, kaning taga Talisay may di ba?
Oh, yes.
Tan-aw nimo ang mga negosyo nga nibutho nangabli sa Talisay. What can you say about that? I mean, like unsa man imuhang ma-gather? Is it a reflection of the character of Talisay and its people? Is it a reflection of its past? Mga unsa may manabantayan nimo nga mga negosyo nga ni flourish diri sa imuhang syudad nga Talisay?
Actually, no. Looking at the different phases or the diverse phases of Talisay's economic history, if we're going to compare and contrast, for example, during the Spanish period, what is most tangible is the sugar industry because there was really a monopoly of business during the time. Then at the same time, people are relying to lands as a sort of their source of income. Then during the American period, from sugar na natay mga resorts, but resorts are technically these are resorts of more affluent people. But today we found out that Talisay's economic phases is diverse because we found out that Talisay is jumping from a more focused one business to another multiplicity of different types of business. Karon malipay ta kay sa una Gaisano ra jud mingontag Gaisano sa Talisay Gaisano jud may numduman Gaisano sa Tabunok, but today we have two Gaisanos. We have Gaisano Tabunok, then we have Gaisano SRP. Then aside from that, we have colonnades, we have small metro stores, and every barangay you try to imagine na nga makaingon sa booming jud kayo ang Talisay kay haka mangita colonnade nga nasa barangay. Ang poblasyon ay kagalingon yung colonnade, ang Dumlog na nay kagalingon colonnade, ang Tangki na si kagalingon yung colonnade. Every barangay, because it shows that these barangays it shows that in these barangays daghang population, at the same time people are becoming murag ni improve na po ilang panginabuhi kay ngano man kada kasagaran nilang uban na may makular job, at the same time dool po sila og mga dagko nga mga
Nagisgot ka in the
residential.
beginning of our interview nga ang Talisay City is a kind of gateway to Cebu City. Ang masabot niya na katong mga ganahan man trabaho sa syudad sa Sugbo unya ganahan sila makasave kay siguro kaning barato ra ang pagkaon, barato ra ang renta, kung ganahan mo sila mapalit og balay, barato ra ang balay. Is that still true?
Actually,
Is that still true nga Talisay City is still a gateway to Cebu City? Or wala na kayo mga mga nanrabaho sa siyudad sa Sugbo nga napuyo din sa Talisay?
Actually, daghan gyapon. Actually, I have a lot of friends and colleagues
Okay.
who are coming from the north, or coming from southern area. Gigi kag Balamban, gikan og kining Sambuan. Ganahan sila Talisay kay although whether we like it or not, Talisay's price of land is very expensive, no, mahal na jud kayo, labi na ang uban di gani mo follow kung say price sa zoning, magdepende sa commercial nga value. But aside from that, namamutay mga ang uban magstay og mga paabangan na medyo affordable jud siya, barato jud siya.
Kumpara sa Cebu at least, di ba?
Yeah, compare sa Cebu because you know Cebu City really is congested. The same also with Talisay. Talisay is also congested, but when it comes to prices, I can say that Talisay is affordable, and at the same time Talisay is not that very conducive compared to Cebu City.
You know, I'm going to ask a businessman later on, aning pangutanaha, but I'm going to ask you, a historian. Describe to us the business climate of Talisay.
Yeah, as of now, makita dyan nato nga Talisay is really improving, no. Improving at the same time, it shows that Talisay's business is multiplicity. It means that Talisay's business is not only gearing to one particular type of business, but it gears towards different types of business. We have commercial, then we have residential, then hopefully we can have industrial, because as of now, that is one thing that Talisay really lacks is in the industrial compared to Mandawi and Lapu-Lapu. So wala kita industrial because again, it has something to do with yuta. Kaya Talisay jud, nagagamay ang yuta, nagkamahal po ng yuta, o ang yuta is very valuable.
Pero its greatest advantage is its strategic location, di
Yeah,
ba?
very good. The greatest advantage of Talisay is its boundary, its geopolitical boundary, or shall we say, because again, gateway siya going to Cebu City, and at the same time, lutsanan po siya going to the south.
Correct. So, kung na kay negosyo sa siyudad sa Sugbo, kung na kay negosyo dito sa Karkar, Pinamungahan, sa Barili, dito sa Dakit, dito sa uban pang mga lugar niya, Talisay is the perfect spot,
Yeah,
right?
correct, yeah. Mabitaw na nga, daghan kayo, like for example, I have a lot of students who are from gikan og kining Barili, gikan og Dalagit, mas mo-prepare sila og Talisay compared to Cebu City.
Kay murag at least usa na lang kabuk siyudad nga ilang taakon
no.
na traffic, diba?
Lagi mo usab na ang traffic. Pero Talisay as of now is
Okay, before I let you go, Professor, mangutana ko nimo, unsa may pinaka-common nga misconception sa mga tao about Talisay City nga that is not, of course, true because it's a misconception. Unsa man imo ang nadunggan nga mga rumors about Talisay nga di tinuod?
Okay. As a history researcher, one of the important aspects that I am trying to dig or to do research is really to make Talisay something connectable to the outside of Talisay itself. So, more dyan ako ikasultino, Talisay is not only when I speak only, ang Talisay dili lang siya sikat ras sa lechon, ha. Talisay really can offer more than the image of lechon.
Okay.
Kay kung mingon mo tag lechon ra sa Talisay, to be honest, ang lechon sa Talisay mahal jud kayo. Dili tanang taga Talisay no na they have the capacity to buy the Talisay, because Talisay lechon is
Actually,
very
I
expensive.
beg to disagree. The lechon in Talisay City, although mahal, pero kung ato ka sa siyudad sa Sugbo, mas mahal pa gyud dito.
Oh.
So actually, when I go to Talisay, kanang may unsa nay ngan sa
Poblacion,
Poblacion nga naay daghang tapad og dagat, di ba?
Oh.
Barato para nako because naanad mo ko presyo sa Cebu,
Cebu
City.
City, oh.
So it's not really that expensive
Pero
to me as a Cebuano.
Pero kitang mga taga Talisay jud, to be ako taga Talisay mo, although I am working as a teacher. So mahal long tayo, mahal kay sa ba magdepende ra bang prices sa una kung may numduman, the price of lechon was around 500, 600, but now
Nakabot ako na.
there are certain days that lechon in Talisay is expensive. Like for example, if you will buy in Saturday, mas mamahal siya like 900, 1,000 niya. Magdepende ra jud siya. So mo na akong
mapalit
gisulti.
na lechon siguro, kay Lunes siguro para barato. Ya kanon mo ka Sabado.
Pero mas lahi jud ang lechon sa Talisay kay lami jud siya, no.
Unsa may
Compared to other-
nakalami sa lechon sa Talisay?
Actually, no,
imong theory ba? Imong theory?
Yeah, ako alam no is when I had my interview with Ato Marolio concerning with the lechon in Talisay, then son of the lechonero, really, I asked the lechonero, what makes Talisay's lechon different, and shall we say, lami compared to other lechon. Ingon siya nga, it has something to do with the ingredients that is being used in preparing the lechon. Pero usay lang mong God, tungkol na ni mga vloggers, vloggers are, we should be thankful to the vloggers pero mo lang gingon nga, nasikit ang Talisay tungkol sa mga vloggers, pero ni mahal po siya. Kaya nisikat man siya maayo. So people outside of Talisay would eventually go to Talisay para mo tog lechon. But again, Talisay can offer more than lechon.
Sige, as a final word, unsa pa may uban nga i-offer sa Talisay gawas sa lami ninyo nga lechon, be?
Aside from lechon, you can visit Talisay, Cebu's only park that is dedicated to the Second World War.
Only park.
Park in Cebu.
Oh.
That was dedicated
Asa man siya nga park?
Naa sa Talisay Poblacion Liberation Park.
Okay.
If you can, like for example, if we have the famous landing in
sa
Palo
Leyte. Leyte, oh.
we have also here in Cebu. Makita na sa Talisay the famous landing, the takas sa Talisay. Na kilid sa mismo sa park nga asa ang lechon ng
So
Liberation Park.
this is open to the public.
Yeah, open siya to the public, and this is very historic because this is the only area or monument or heritage that had a marker coming from the National Historical Commission of the Philippines that when someone's heritage sites nagibutangan siyang marker sa NHCP, it revolutionized, at the same time it legalized the importance of that particular famous landing. So ngano mga to pamatag palo nga nanamtay landing sa toa sa Cebu.
So if they want to know more about Talisay City and about the history of not just Talisay City, but perhaps the history of Cebu or the history of the Philippines, I know you're a history professor at Talisay City College. Marben Bascon. Where should they go? Where can they find you? Tell everybody, invite everybody to go to your social media touch points. Go ahead.
Hi, actually, I have a page in the Facebook, in the social media, pero dili kay na siya mag-post lang ko na siya mag-post lang ko once a month, depende lang ba kung na mga important nga mga events, like for example the Historia de Talisay, so bati kay na siya nga page kay wala pa na nako kayo
Historia de Talisay.
So in the Historia de Talisay, it's a page dedicated for Talisay's history. So if you want to read and learn more about Talisay, because as of now we don't have textbooks or books about the history of Talisay, but hopefully by next year, with the help of the Talisay City Government, because we are working with the Office of Councilor Daan, by next year we will be producing. This one, the Historia de Talisay. You can access this one. Hopefully by next year, with the help and partnership with the Talisay City Government, we'll be launching a textbook or books in the history of Talisay that will be used not only for but also for
what do you recommend the viewer or the listener will read if they want to know about Talisay? Existing books, is there any about Talisay?
Actually, na usa ka libro nga nag-exist about Talisay. It was written in 2014, pero rare kani siya. It is not open for the public because it was published by the provincial government in 2014. But if you want to know more about Talisay, you can ask me because I have a lot of books about Talisay. But as of now, I am working with 3 titles, and which hopefully by next year it will be published.
3 titles?
Yeah, 3 titles.
Wow.
Number 1 is Kagubot, Talisay during the 2 de Abril. So I already sent the manuscript to the descendants of the Alinio and Galaroa, that hopefully once they were able to finish the readings, the manuscripts, hopefully by next year, April 2, it will be published. Then the other one is the political history of Talisay. So the political history of Talisay from 1834 to the present, 2025. Hopefully with the help of the city government, I'm going to show this manuscript to the Talisay City Government so that by next year, January, Talisay will be celebrating its 25th anniversary as a city.
Okay.
So we should do something on that day.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Like
That's a big
launching
day.
a book about Talisay after, from 1834 to 2025. And then the other one, which is basically part of my thesis from my master's degree, it's a book about Talisay during the Second World War.
Wow. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, Professor of History of the Talisay City College, Marben Bascon. Daghang salamat, Marbs.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Daghang salamat, and it's such a beautiful day to learn more about this beautiful city that is Talisay. Daghang salamat.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.